Okay, well, let's get started. I don't know how many of you have ever attended a Coach Smedley session. If you have, give me a thumbs up if you've ever joined Coach Smedley. I do this as a disclaimer because pretty eccentric, but I'm mostly harmless. I want you to enjoy the session today as we talk about some student engagement strategies for the adult ed or correctional environment. Don't worry about the correctional piece in my title. Everything I cover is applicable in both spaces. Okay, we are going to get started. Next slide, please. Our goals today are threefold. We want to talk about some rapport building strategies. So, in the classroom, I don't know if you experienced this, but we're outnumbered. There's one of us and 10, 20, 30, 60 students. So in an environment like that, you've got to learn how to quickly build rapport. And I've got an exciting tool for you to use so you can gain that quick rapport. We're also going to talk about academic trauma. Um, School was not a happy place for many of our students. I'm sure you've heard that. So we're going to talk about how do we increase our awareness and retain more of our students. I think that we lose students early on in the early weeks of our program that we don't have to lose, but we're making a critical mistake that's causing us to lose some. We're going to talk about that. And then lastly, the activities, including the affirmations and different fun games we'll play, are going to help your students gain confidence. So let's get started. A little bit of background on Coach Smedley. I am the child of an incarcerated person, but I also am the child of a woman who went back to high school after being kicked out. So I always say my journey began with adult education and correctional ed. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and my parents were 15 and 17, respectively. Now, many kids' story ends right here. Fortunately, mine did not. In my story, both of my parents made the important decision to go back and finish their high school education. Mom finished high school, went on to earn 3 degrees, an associate's, a bachelor's, and a master's in social service administration. That taught her how to run nonprofits. In the course of that work and an illustrious career, she met 2 presidents along the way. And as a result, all 3 of her kids went to college and earned degrees, and her grandchild is wrapping up a master's program next spring. On my dad's side, he earned his GED while being incarcerated and his bachelor's. I tell our story in my book, Embracing Your Story. That is available on Amazon. If you need information, reach out to me because I go to prisons and the men and women read the book and I join them on Zoom and we discuss it. I'm doing that in Iowa and South Carolina right now. Next slide. So let's talk about approach. 3 things that I do have made me very effective in this work. Establishing rapport quickly, I already mentioned that, but also customizing the student experience. Well, how do you do that, Coach Smedley? With all these students and not enough time, how can I customize the experience for each student? You're going to learn. And finally, and probably my biggest superpower is authenticity. I am real. All of my students appreciate that because let me give you an example. When your students ask for something, and it can be anything, when you say maybe, they hear yes. So, in dealing with my students, I have found that I say no first, and then I say, but let me check into it. But if you're on the fence and you're not definitive, they hear yes or maybe. Okay. So being authentic, using that authenticity and just being firm but fair has helped me a long way. Next slide. Why am I suggesting that you use fun and games in order to reach your students? Well, let me start with my initial comment about hearts and minds. If you get their heart, they will let you teach them anything. You can teach calculus and have a room packed with students if you first get their hearts. So a lot of what I talk about this morning is going to be about engaging and getting that student's hearts, and their mind will follow. Along the way, I'll give you my nuggets of wisdom. So Coach Smedley thinks sprinkling in fun activities allows the teacher to observe their class. Now, I said, how do you establish rapport quickly with a lot of students? Well, this next tool is going to show you how. When you give fun activities, when you're assigning them, you're going to walk around with your magic clipboard and observe. Because when you're in a group of new students who you don't know yet, you need to see who your players are, who has shown up in your classroom. Who's struggling to understand the instructions? Who's helping other people? Who's having fun? Who's totally rejecting your activity? They're in a corner with their arms folded. Who hesitates but then joins in? And who's your know-it-all? You're going to have these people in every classroom. And observing them and identifying who they are quickly will help you navigate through classroom management. Next, how do we customize the experience? Now, I'm going to tie all of these together, so just hold on. Initial student engagement is not about academics, it's about relationships. That's that connection I was talking about. And customizing the experience for everyone ties them in closely to you as the educator. A tool that I use is My Favorite Things. This is a very simple one-page questionnaire where you're asking students non-threatening questions. Think about the folks we work with. They've been filling out forms all their lives, asking sensitive, personal, and painful information. So something fun is unexpected. You're asking them, what's your favorite color, your favorite pet, your favorite car? The My favorite ice cream question, I got a great response from my teacher in South Carolina. She said one of the gentlemen, this was in an incarcerated setting, he said, I don't know. I haven't been out in years, but I'm going to find out. So these questions are forward facing as they get released. If you're on the adult ed side, our lives are so stressful and our students are running and racing, they don't think about these things. This allows them to slow down and get in touch with who they are with these non-threatening questions. You can come up with your own questions, but the purpose of this activity is to get to know them and to give them something to think about and dream about. Similarly, I have the soundtrack of my life. For those that like music, I asked them, what's your favorite workout song? What's your pick me up song? What's your anthem? You know, but the soundtrack of my life. It takes them back to different experiences, different moods. Again, you're getting to know the students. And these activities take just a few minutes, to do, and then you can read them and get to know your students, and they're surprised when you remember things about them. Do you like that? The soundtrack of my life. I can remember back in high school, my first breakup and the songs that got me through. So these kinds of very human activities increases that connection. The last way I'll suggest to customize the experience, and what do I mean when I say that? I mean, I try to have an encounter with every student over the course of our time together. Just me and them. I see you, I hear you, I'm listening. I want to get to know you. And one way I did that with my magic file cabinet, because some of you are wondering, Coach Smedley, how do you keep all this stuff together, these forms and these activities? I have a magic file cabinet that I keep full of resources. And if you put in the upfront work, you will get huge dividends in terms of using them with every cohort. You can use these materials for years. Just keep them in your magic file cabinet. So, what is the mailbox? I would sometimes give students either monthly, every other week, as frequently as you can, give each student a piece of mail. It might be an article, it may be something for career related information, it can be anything. But the key is every student gets something different and it is personalized for them. I had a gearhead in class one time, and I saw an article about these big monster trucks. There was a truck show coming to town, and I printed it up for him. And I just said, "Hey, at the end of class, I thought about you when I saw this." That was his mail. His eyes lit up. First of all, you know that I like trucks, Coach Smedley, and you cared enough to bring this information. So on his way back to his cell, he is just all over this and sharing it with others. So the having a mailbox is so important if you have time. But as we go through, you're going to see that you can find time to do some of these fun activities. Oh, lastly, the weekend packet. I am big on giving a weekend packet. What else are you doing? And this is whether it's in the community or behind the wall. A weekend packet is just a series of worksheets, articles, whatever activity it is, even study tips. If you find an area where your student has a weakness, then you can just give them extra work. But that weekend packet teaches discipline. It's extra time to building their own education. You can't do all the work. And I tell my students, I'm not going to work harder than you do. So consider weekend packets. And I talked about authenticity. Allowing yourself to try silly activities, it reinforces your authenticity. The students know that they can have fun when they come to your class. We get down to business, but we always start out with some light activity. And it can be just a few minutes, 5, 10 minutes. It's the equivalent of warming up your body before you start a workout. You don't just jump right in, you ease into it. So the games and activities I'm suggesting are a type of warm up. And before we do the actual activities, I have one last thing I've got to impress upon you, the marginalized student. And I did a graphic here to kind of really bring the point home. This little guy is adorable. Can't you picture him with his little backpack? But early on, he loved his teachers. He felt smart. He belonged. Okay. He was probably getting good care at home, health care, his shots and doctor visits. He is just a burst of joy. Then he goes to middle school. So we're starting to see some skill gaps. Okay. His grades are failing. His connection to school is fading. He may hang around a little longer, but he's kind of checked out in middle school. He's lost. By high school, if he's still there, he is just around antisocial peers. The skill gap is more aware, it's increased, and he might even be engaging in risky behaviors. Maybe a brush with the law. We don't know. But high school is where we start to lose him. We've already started. We lose him in high school. We don't see this kid again until he's an adult learner. Now he's got some maturity. He's got something to live for. Family, pro-social friends. He has a vision for his life. The whole point of understanding this is the next slide. Our job is to reconnect this adult learner with that little guy. The problem that I see, and I've been doing this a long time, coach has worked in the community, I've worked behind the wall, treatment centers, I've approached this educational thing from many aspects, including my own family with my incarcerated relatives. We start our programs right there in the middle. They come in, we start testing, we start throwing paperwork at them. This is what we expect. We're just triggering them and reminding them of what they didn't like about school in the first place. Does anyone agree? Have you seen this? That first couple of weeks, they're trying to find their way, and we lose them because we jump right into all the serious hard work. You don't want to be a trigger for students who already had a rocky academic past. We are losing them. And I think we can cut down those losses by doing some fun things right up front. And it doesn't take a lot of time. I know we're stuck with curriculum that we have to follow, but 5 or 10 minutes here or there, sprinkled liberally, can make a huge difference. I gotta know that you understand this point. We are losing folks. Our goal has to be reconnection. They don't think they're good students. You need to remind them they're not the same kid that was in school as a child. Adult learners bring a whole lot of knowledge and skills, and they can be better students. They just need to be reminded. So let's start looking at the activities. The big one that I always use, and I've done this for years, is vitamins. What is a vitamin? A vitamin is a supplement when you can't eat enough to keep your body where it needs to be. So it's a supplement. So if you're in an adult ed program or if you're incarcerated in correctional ed, these vitamins are a way to boost your strength. And all they are little sheets of paper. And I usually make them colorful and I cut them into little squares. And I have a quote. This first one is one of my favorite, John Wooden. If I manage myself, others won't have to. So the student will walk in, the vitamins are laying right by my door, and they can pick one up. No big deal, just a colorful little square. If you're not allowed to use color, I know sometimes that could be a gang thing inside, just plain white paper. Another way to modify that is to write it on the board, our daily vitamin. But find quotes that really reinforce the things you're trying to teach. I have another one, another quote here. The worst walls are never the ones you find in your way. The worst walls are the ones you put there. So some of these can be deep. I get philosophers, celebrities, athletes, just pull quotes from a variety of people. And then what I started doing is on the back, I tell them who that person is. Why is John Wooden a famous? He was a famous basketball coach as a player and a coach. So you're increasing their knowledge with these little bitty quotes. And again, you have to do some prep work, but by doing that, you have it and you can use it with every cohort moving forward. So, vitamins, remember that. We're going to talk about this again. Brain games. I said that this thinking thing needs some warm up, and many of our students haven't been in school for years. So, we got to scrape off some of that rust. So, let's look at these brain games. Can you find the answer to any of these? Some of them are a little tricky, but they get you thinking. The thing I like about brain games like this is that it's a quiet activity. It teaches focus, concentration. It slows the mood down. So when your class is out of order, give them a quiet activity to get them thinking. We want them to learn how to focus and concentrate. They're going to need those muscles in their workplace and with their academics. These are skills we're building like muscles. Okay, so if you had trouble with these, we got the answers for you. Like I said, some of these were a little tricky. Can you see yourself incorporating puzzles and games like this in your classrooms? And you will receive these as soon as we're done today. I'll be uploading these slides, so you will get everything that you're seeing today. Next, another activity that teaches concentration and focus is a simple, can you spot five differences? Now, these books are available anywhere, any drugstore, dollar store. And what I usually do is find different levels. Some are very easy puzzles, and others are more complicated. Mrs. Graycoker, did I lose you?
I am here. Are you not seeing the screen?
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. We're having technical difficulties, folks.
Okay.
Live TV.
How are we doing now?
Okay. Awesome. Can you go back one?
Happy to do that. Here we are.
Okay. So, spotting the five differences. And this is one of the easy level, but they start with easy and go all the way up to advanced. But again, you're keeping the brain going. And I got this activity from a friend who's an activity coordinator at a nursing home. A lot of the stuff she uses is to help the Alzheimer's patients, and it is so powerful. So puzzles and brains, they stimulate the mind. So consider using these. I don't have an answer key for this, so you have to figure out the five on your own. All right, ducks in a row. This activity, let me tell you where this came from. One thing I learned about my students is that they have a hard time prioritizing. And some of them are just so discouraged and beaten down that everything seems impossible. I had a student tell me, Coach Smedley, you just don't understand. I've got to get my birth certificate and I've got to finish training. It's just too much. And so I said, okay, catch your breath. How hard is a birth certificate? Were you born in these United States? We can probably get it pretty easily. Now maybe there's certain situations. So I wasn't minimizing his plight, but I wanted him to understand that everything is not impossible. And many of our students begin to feel like that. Everything is too hard. Everything is going to be difficult. So I said, I've got to find a way to help them put it in perspective. So I came up with ducks in a row, and I actually use real rubber ducks in my classroom. I have a workaround if you can't bring actual ducks in. But what I did, I gave every student a fictional scenario. That's key. Start with someone else. Don't have them looking at their own lives because everything is too hard, Coach Smedley. Have them look at a 3 to 5 sentence scenario. Billy has this, needs this, and put some challenges in there and large and small problems. When I say a big duck or a little duck, it means complexity, how long it will take to accomplish. These are the kind of things you're teaching them so that they have the skill to prioritize. So I give them a scenario, and these pictures are actually from a volunteer training I did. My volunteers were learning how to use this with my students. So they're reading the scenarios, and then you think about and label, is that a small duck or is that a big duck? That's what the labels are for. And each duck, and then you have a sheet that'll have the scenarios. I have some, but I can help you create your own that'll work in your environment. And then you label the ducks. After several rounds of them doing someone else's story, then bring it home. What are your ducks? What are your big things that you need to accomplish? What are the little things that will get you there? It's all about teaching them how to prioritize. Many of them have very complicated situations. Just keeping up with baby mamas or baby daddies. It's complicated. You need a chart. So I wanted them to learn how to make things simple. On the next slide, you'll see a workaround. If you can't actually use ducks, I use the handout and they just write them down. So example, the birth certificates, that's a little duck. But your CDL, that's going to take longer. It's more complex. So having them discern a little duck from a big duck. Oh, you like that one? And believe me, it works. The anxiety is just removed once they learn how to look at a situation, not their own. Start with someone else or a fictional scenario, but then they learn, okay, I can do this. Their confidence grows. So little duck or big duck. Because Coach Smedley loves history, every group I ever teach has an element of history in it. It really does. What I did with this activity is called When Did It Happen? I just printed some random pictures. I framed them on black construction paper because I thought that would look cool, like a photography, the old photography. And then I scrambled them on the paper on a table in front of the students. And I said, put them in chronological order. This can be a group activity or an individual activity. And believe me, nothing can make you feel old like a student that says, hey, who's that guy? I think he's somebody important. That's Ronald Reagan, son. I feel ancient because they don't know who these people are. But it's a great activity, whether you're having a GED class, even life skills. Any sequential activities can be used as pictures that they lay out in chronological order. Okay. And then you give them an answer key. On the right is the packet that tells a little bit about each photo. With Muhammad Ali there, that's him knocking out Sonny Liston. That was important. So you want to give them the backstory behind each photo. And you can use this with anything. I had a packet of technology where they had to lay out which computer came first or which tool came first. Anything historical that you can have them put in chronological order. It increases teamwork if you do it as a group, and it just builds their knowledge. You're going to hear me talk about that a lot. Our students come to us with a lot of gaps. They know a little bit about many different things, and our job is to help them connect the dots. They all know more than they think they do. Our job is to help them connect those dots. So when did it happen? In this case, I use it for history, but you can also use it for any other topic. Get creative. Mrs. Gray Coker, do we have a question? I see an alert.
We did have a question in the chat, and the question was regarding the slides. We have
Oh,
an
okay.
attendee who wanted to know if the slides would be shared, and I responded yes. So that's
Oh,
information for
okay.
everyone. We will share information at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of
Thank
course, of
you.
course.
This activity uses graffiti as an inspiration. On the right, that is actually a 12 by 12 square that I got from Michael's. It's for scrapbooking. That's a standard size for scrapbooks. So they had this beautiful brick wall. I loved it. And then I had to create my own decayed wall. But I thought about this as a symbol of our students' lives. And I asked them, what graffiti, what would you say on your wall? What would your wall have on it? What have you lived through? And so you take the old wall and then you take the fresh wall, the new chapter. What is your life going to be like? And just using Sharpie markers. My students use Sharpies to write on their different walls, the bricks in my wall. And as far as materials, my program generally didn't have a lot of money for a budget. So I had to go low cost or free or recycled, and I had to get creative. I don't know if anyone can relate, but again, the scrapbooking page from Michael's created my own for the old wall, but having them put down what does your wall look like? And I wish I had bought student examples. I have a lot of these, but they're hard to print because of the size. But students wrote things like broken home, no father, learning disability. They put different things. And then on their new wall is where they put their dreams. Okay, we're going to go into some bonus material. I didn't know if we'd have time to get into these, but we do, and I can't wait. I hope you're picking up some good tools to add to your toolkit. This is a workshop that Coach Smedley does. It's called Building Muscles with Coach Smedley. And I use the model for like circuit training. If you ever go to the gym, they have sometimes have you doing 15 or 20 minutes on this machine, and then you rotate to the next one, and you just keep going around. Well, I envision my classroom set up like the circuit training, and we spend so many minutes with each muscle. And these are some critical muscles that our students are going to need to be adults, to experience reentry once they're released, if they're correctional students. And I just thought about activities to isolate those muscles, just like you do in a gym. So I brought in a few of those activities. I don't have all six, but this is a workshop that is available. I'd love to do this. I do them virtually or in person if you want more of Coach Smedley. But following instructions, concentration, academic stamina, or persistence, finishing from program year to program year, creating that lifelong learner, that's important. Muscle number four is problem solving. Self-management is huge. And then finally, oh, I can't see the last slide. Okay. Change. That's a big one. I've used a book, Who Moved My Cheese, for the change activity. And it's a really good book if you've heard of it. It's an old book, it's been out here forever, but it really helps with dealing with change and how people resist change. All right, so let's take a look at some of these muscle builders. The stamina. It is important to remember why your students are so tired. I don't know about yours, but my students drag into class exhausted. If they're in the community, they've got so many responsibilities. The kids, the home, trying to better themselves. If they're incarcerated, you don't get a lot of sleep in jail or prison. and you're depressed, some of them. So all of these things are pulling at our energy and our stamina. So we have to help them build. And what do I mean? Well, if you have a writing assignment, start with two sentences. Give them a prompt as you walk in. Hey, I need you to write two sentences responding to that question. That's a start. After they get in the rhythm of that, then increase it a bit, make it a paragraph. And once they're comfortable at that level, then a full page. That might be homework. But the mistake we make is we jump out there. I want a one page on this subject. And maybe it's not a one page written assignment, but something equivalent to it's hard. And we have to build our students up to that point, build their stamina. In a similar vein, another muscle we need to work on is problem solving. I do a lot of role plays and skits. The more practice you give them in the classroom, they can take that outside. I tell them, here we're practicing. When you get out, you're the quarterback of your own life. And that's when we need you to execute. But to prepare you, we use a lot of different scenarios. So the first one, your friends invite you to a club, but you're trying to stay sober. What do you do? That is an excellent way to discuss what are my options. Maybe we don't go to the club. Maybe you suggest some other fun activity. If you're trying to remain sober, you have to be aware of people, places, and things. And that's a dilemma that our many of our students are going to face, their social circle and how to navigate that. Also, work related. You miss a bus and have no way to get to work. Okay. Well, rather than being discouraged and depressed because you don't have a car and going home and moping, what's your backup plan? You need a backup plan when you get that job. What's going to happen if I miss my bus? Who is my go-to? Can I call my cousin, or keep a pool of money for a Lyft or an Uber? You get the idea, rehearse it, plan for contingencies. What can go wrong? Okay. But these problem solving scenarios really help them build their muscles because these things are going to happen. These are everyday life things. Okay. Um, I like the last one. You feel left out of family conversations that focus on events during your incarceration. Now, I know all of us don't work in that space, but it's helpful. Anything where your student felt left out and it brings up some feelings. It does. How do they navigate that? So again, these problem solving exercises will help them with the things that we know they're going to face. If you really want to get creative, have your students start creating some. What are situations they've actually had that'll help increase your materials? There's uh, influences all around you. Ideas come when I recognize a problem or an issue with a student. That's when I get creative and try and figure out how can I teach them with real world examples. Okay, next. Self-management, that's another muscle. If I manage myself, others won't have to. So here are some vitamins. Remember we talked about vitamins a few minutes ago. These are some vitamins devoted to self-management. I'll give you a minute to read over these. Some of these are very powerful. If you own your mistakes, you can own your comeback. That's Coach Smedley. As I mentioned in the first sentence here, they can be used as journal activities, discussion starters, end of class wisdom as they're leaving. There's a lot of ways that you can use these. And some of these are gut punches. They really are. A few of them the anonymous ones I've gotten from workshops, either from students or if I did an educational, professional development workshops. These are some that have been submitted. So they don't have a name, but they are really relevant to our population. We have a second page of these too. You don't need a second chance. You need a new mindset. Wow. I like the being out is a gift. What you do with it is your responsibility. That's important because our folks get comfortable. Once they've been out for a while, they start getting a little lax. Oh, I'm not going to see my PO. I'm tired. You don't miss appointments like that, okay? But they start testing the waters. I'm just gonna get high with my friends. I'll I'll be clean before the drug test. They start taking liberties, and that is what lands them back inside. We know how high the recidivism rates are. So a lot of these self-management vitamins will plant a seed and really make them think. So I hope you enjoy these and can find a way to incorporate them. This is an activity I did years ago. Um, this is on the left, it's an actual photo album. It's a small one. It's like a 5x8, 4x6. And I put on here, in this album are my jail memories. I am sharing everything that I'm leaving behind me here in this place. When I get out and face temptation, I will think about what I put in this album. I will not come back to jail. And what I had the students do, every student got a sheet of paper that fit the photo album. And on the front and back, I had them draw or write or any way they can express themselves and talk about the worst memories of being incarcerated. And I said, get honest. And I remember one student, he didn't like the jumpsuit. He hated the color and it was itchy. I said, okay, remember how itchy it is so you don't come back here. Some put the food, the anger, the lack of sleep. I mean, they got real. And what I challenged them with was once you get out, if you start feeling like you're sliding into your old behaviors, call me. I will send you your page out of the photo book. This is a reminder, everything that you do not like. So that you do not like about the experience. And I did this for two reasons. Number one, to help them purge their feelings. Because you feel some kind of way about being locked up. So I wanted them to get it out in a positive way. The other thing was to help them think about the pitfalls. When they're out there and they're tempted, I wanted them to think about what will bring you back here. So this is an idea you can try. It really helped them get in touch with why I don't want to come back. I did have some return and I showed them their album. Next slide. So my final thoughts and really just pointers for us as educators. Three things that we can contribute to our students that will help them. One is teaching them to dream again. Many of them, since nothing has ever come true, they stop dreaming. So teaching them to dream. I do an activity called virtual field trips, and it's just like it sounds. I'm like, where do you want to go? And then I put a packet together of information about that destination, like a travel agent would do. And I have them do a budget. How much do you need to go to this place? And what do the tickets cost? And how will you get there? It becomes a whole thing helping them do these virtual field trips. And it gives them exposure to historical places or exotic places. The Sydney house in Australia, just teaching them what's out here globally. So teach them to dream. Also encouraging them to be lifelong learners. As you can see from the activities, and these are just a few of the things Coach Smedley uses, but I encourage curiosity and wonder. I want them to learn and grow. And I will tell you this, when you start engaging students on this level, you're going to have to keep adding to your magic file cabinet because they're going to want more. I've had students come in, well, coach, I saw this vitamin before. This is a repeat. You need another one. So get them excited, but it makes you up your game too. It does. So creating lifelong learners. And then finally, giving them small wins. Some of our students need a win on the board. With the early weeks, I would say you attended every day. That's great. Now, as they go on, we want the expectation to be that they make, bigger successes and advances, but give them some small wins. That goes back to that academic trauma. They need to feel good about school today. Give them some small wins. I want to thank you for attending this workshop. We do have extra time if anyone has questions, any specific ideas that you need. Here's Coach Smedley's email, beinspired@coachsmedley.com. And Miss Sharon, if you turn the display off, I'll be here a few more minutes if anyone has questions or comments.
Coach, I'll also mention that participants can unmute themselves if they like and add to the session that way.
Oh, excellent. I hope everyone picked up at least one tip or idea that you can use tomorrow.
You do have a question.
Mhm.
The question is, do you find that the students are hesitant at the start to do these kinds of activities?
Yes, they are. Absolutely. That's where your enthusiasm comes in. And you can even address the elephant in the room. I know some of you may not have found school very comfortable. We're going to it's a new chapter. We're going to try a new thing. I ask every group, when did you stop liking school? I'm making an assumption there, but 95% of them say fourth grade. That's a turning point. If you are falling behind in terms of any of the subjects, it starts to show. And that skills gap widens and widens, and eventually you check out. But fourth grade is where most of them say they stopped liking school. I had a coworker, and I appreciate this question. I really do. I had a coworker, and he was old school. They're going to think you're treating them like children. You're going to mess this all up. He came to me after the first session and said, I am so sorry. I didn't think these grown men would enjoy an activity like that. It's all in presentation. We're not looking down. We're trying to get them excited and show some enthusiasm and show them with adults. You got to tell them, what's the point of this? You let them know we're doing some warm-ups. We're going to get you back in school mode, school shape, like a gym. Okay? So it's all in presentation.
There's a
And that,
follow-up question,
yes.
and what about when other instructors are skeptical? So you just touched upon that a little bit, right? Can you
hmm
elaborate?
Well, you have to have a thick skin. I think that's what they say. Coach Medley was not very popular in my building. This now in adult ed, that was wonderful, But in behind the wall, they always thought I was doing too much. What else would I hear? You, why are you wasting your time? They're not going to do anything. I mean, I had so much negativity. Fortunately, I knew my purpose. I was so focused on why I'm here. So when an officer said, they're not going to do anything, you're wasting your time, it's mine to waste. I'm going to do my job and I'd walk off. I never let those outside voices influence me because they didn't understand that I'm here to change lives. You all saw my background. My life could have been very different if my parents had not gotten an education. I take this seriously because I'm not just helping my student, I'm helping their children, their siblings, their community. It's not just that one person that you impact. So you have to remember why you're there. Now, if a coworker or another instructor wants ideas, we can talk about that all day. But if you're just jealous and questioning my motives or think I'm doing too much, you're not somebody I need to deal with. I hope that helps. I'm just being transparent. Um, my approach has proven to be effective. I've lasted longer in this field. Many of those folks don't need to be in the field anyway. Just my humble opinion.
I don't see any additional questions in the Q&A. Would you take a moment and repeat your email address, please?
Yes. And we can go back to that. Well, if you want to put the slide back up, be inspired at coachsmedley.com. Be inspired. You can also reach me through the app for the conference. A few of you sent me messages, and I think we have access to that for quite a while after the conference. Be inspired at coachsmedley.com.
Okay, and I've put the slide up again.
Anyone else? Don't be shy.
Okay, I don't see another question in the chat. And we do have your email address.
Excellent. I know it's the last day of the conference. I hope you all enjoyed this week
All
and
right.
learned lots of new things.
Carrie, thank you for your comment and thank you for being here. Thanks to everyone for attending today. Please monitor our contacts via email and through the conference as Coach Smelly does, as she says, and send you great information for you to look at and work with beyond today's session. And also, she's open for you to reach out to her directly if you have questions about running a session, inviting her to your workspace to present and talk more about what she does or more about how to educate adults.
Thank you for coming. You survived your first Coach Smedley workshop, some of you. I am going to close the room now, Miss Sharon.
Thank you again, everyone. Safe travels to your destinations today. Bye now.